I was 13 years old when I first learned what a real crush felt like. Not the kind you laugh about with friends or forget after a week, but the kind that lives in your chest and refuses to leave. I liked this boy so much that my entire world seemed to revolve around whether or not I might see him that day. He wasn't famous or popular in a movie star way, but to me, he was everything. If you've ever watched Phineas and Ferb, I was basically Isabella, hopelessly, obviously, painfully in love. Every time he walked into a room, my heart would start racing. I would suddenly forget how to act like a normal human being. My palms would get sweaty, my face would feel hot, and my mind would fill with 100 different things I wanted to say, and then immediately erase all of them. I admired him from a distance, stealing glances when I thought he wasn't looking, replaying small interactions in my head like they were full-length movies. My best friends noticed long before I ever said anything. They were the kind of friends who know you better than you know yourself, and to this day, they're still by my side. Back then, they loved teasing me about my crush, but they also genuinely wanted to help. Every lunch period, every walk between classes, they would push me, sometimes gently, sometimes not so gently, to talk to him. Just say hi, they'd tell me. It's not that hard, they insisted. He's just a boy, they laughed. But to 13-year-old me, he wasn't just a boy. He was terrifying. The idea of walking up to him and actually speaking felt impossible. Every time I worked up the courage to do it, I'd find a reason not to. Maybe he looked busy. Maybe he was talking to someone else. Maybe tomorrow would be better. Tomorrow always felt safer. Deep down, I was scared of one thing more than anything else: rejection. I was scared that if I said something and he didn't feel the same way, it would somehow break me. So I stayed quiet, hiding behind my friends' encouragement and my own excuses, pretending that silence was safer than honesty. Then the school announced there would be a dance. A real one. Music, decorations, dim lights, everything. Suddenly, it felt like this was my moment. This was the chance movies and TV shows always talked about. I told myself over and over that I couldn't let it pass. If I didn't ask him now, I never would. For days leading up to it, my stomach was in knots. I practiced what I would say in the mirror, whispered the words to myself at night, rewrote the sentence in my head 1,000 different ways. My friends were fully invested by then, hyping me up like it was the most important mission of our lives. Just do it, they said. You'll regret it if you don't. I knew they were right. And somehow, with every ounce of courage I had, I decided I was finally going to ask him. The day I decided to ask him felt heavier than any other day before it. My heart pounded from the moment I woke up, like it already knew what was coming. I barely paid attention in class, my mind stuck on one single thought: today is the day. Every time I imagined actually saying the words out loud, my chest tightened and my throat went dry. By the time school was almost over, my nerves were completely shot. My friends could tell. They kept giving me looks, little nods of encouragement, squeezing my hand when teachers weren't looking. I tried to act normal, but there was nothing normal about how I felt. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing you have to jump but being terrified of the fall. I finally saw him standing near the lockers, laughing with someone. For a moment, I almost backed out again. I told myself I could always ask later, that there was no rush, that maybe it wasn't meant to be. But then I remembered all the times I'd stayed quiet, all the chances I'd already let slip away. If I didn't do it now, I never would. I walked up to him, my legs feeling like they didn't belong to me. My hands were shaking, and I was pretty sure my face was bright red. When he turned and looked at me, everything else seemed to disappear. The hallway noise faded, the people around us blurred, and suddenly it was just him and me. I opened my mouth, and for a second, no sound came out. I panicked, then forced myself to speak. The sentence came out awkward and rushed, nothing like the confident version I'd practiced in my head. I asked him if he wanted to go to the school dance with me. There was a pause. It probably only lasted a second or two, but it felt like an eternity. He looked surprised, then thoughtful, and my heart sank before he even said anything. When he finally spoke, his answer was simple and gentle, but it was still a no. He explained that he couldn't go with me. He didn't say it cruelly, and he wasn't rude about it, but the words still hit hard. I nodded, pretending I was okay, pretending it didn't matter. I even managed a small smile before turning away. The moment I was out of his sight, everything fell apart. I felt crushed, defeated, and completely destroyed. It was like all that courage I'd built up just collapsed in on itself. I kept replaying the moment in my head, wondering what I'd done wrong, wishing I could rewind time and never ask at all. My friends tried to comfort me, telling me I was brave, telling me it was his loss, but none of it helped. At 13, rejection feels enormous. It feels permanent. I went home that day convinced that this was the end of the story, that he was officially part of my past. In my mind, he was history. A couple of days passed, and slowly, the sharp sting of rejection started to dull. It still hurt, but not in that overwhelming, world-ending way. I went back to my routine, pretending like everything was normal, even though something inside me felt a little bruised. I told myself that this was just how things went sometimes, that not every crush was meant to turn into something more. I stopped thinking about him as much, or at least I tried to. Whenever his name came up or I saw him in the hallway, I forced myself to look the other way. I didn't want to reopen that wound. I had already decided that chapter of my life was closed. Then one afternoon, something completely unexpected happened. I was at home when the doorbell rang. I remember being confused because we weren't expecting anyone. I went to answer it without thinking, still in my comfortable clothes, still caught up in my own little world. When I opened the door, my heart nearly stopped. There he was. For a second, I honestly thought I was imagining things. The boy I had convinced myself was history was standing right in front of me, looking nervous in a way I'd never seen before. My mind raced, trying to figure out why he was there, why now, after everything. He apologized almost immediately. He told me he was sorry for how things had gone and that he hadn't wanted to hurt me. Then he explained what had really happened. Another girl had asked him out before I did, and he had already said yes to her when I finally worked up the courage to ask him to the dance. Hearing that didn't magically erase the pain, but it changed something. It made the rejection feel less personal, less like something was wrong with me. He went on to say that he really liked me too, and that if things had been different, he would have said yes. I stood there listening, my emotions completely tangled. Part of me wanted to protect myself and keep my guard up. Another part of me felt that familiar flutter in my chest all over again. He looked genuinely sorry, and his words felt honest. Before he left, he said something that stuck with me. He told me he wanted to make it up to me somehow. He didn't know how yet, but he meant it. As I closed the door behind him, I leaned against it, my heart racing, realizing that maybe, just maybe, the story wasn't over after all. After he left that day, I stood there for a long time, just staring at the closed door. My heart was pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. A part of me was relieved, another part was confused, and a much bigger part was scared. Scared because the feelings I had tried so hard to bury suddenly rushed back to the surface like they had never left. For the next few days, my mind wouldn't stop replaying everything he said. The apology, the explanation, the way he looked nervous standing on my porch. It felt strange knowing that he liked me too, even if the timing had been wrong. At 13, timing feels cruel, like the universe is playing a joke you don't understand yet. When I went back to school, things were different. Not dramatically, not like in movies where everything suddenly turns romantic, but subtly. We started talking. At first, it was small, careful conversations. A quick, hi, in the hallway. A smile during class. A short conversation after school that felt way too important for how simple it was. I was still afraid. Afraid of getting hurt again, afraid of hoping for too much. But every time we talked, that fear softened just a little. He wasn't some perfect, untouchable idea anymore. He was just a boy, kind, awkward, funny in a quiet way. And the more I got to know him, the more my crush turned into something deeper. Life, of course, didn't suddenly become easy. Middle school turned into high school, and everything got more complicated. There were classes, exams, new friends, new pressures. Sometimes we grew closer, and sometimes we drifted apart. There were misunderstandings, missed chances, and moments where it felt like we were always just a step out of sync. There were times when I wondered if this was all it would ever be, almost something. We both grew, changed, and learned who we were as people. There were moments when life pulled us in different directions, moments when we didn't talk as much, moments when I questioned whether he would always just be the boy I almost had. But somehow, no matter how much time passed, we always found our way back to each other. It wasn't dramatic or forced. It felt natural, like gravity pulling us into the same space again and again. As we got older, our conversations became deeper. We talked about dreams, fears, and the kind of lives we wanted to live. The older we got, the more I realized something important. What started as a childish crush had grown into real love. Not the kind you see in movies, but the kind built slowly, patiently, over years. The kind that survives awkward beginnings, bad timing, and long pauses. We supported each other through changes and challenges, through growing pains and uncertainty. He became my safe place, and I became his. Somewhere along the way, that 13-year-old girl who was terrified of rejection learned that sometimes, the things that hurt you at the beginning are the very things that shape the best parts of your future. By the time we were adults, there was no doubt left. What we had wasn't fragile anymore. It was strong, steady, and real. The boy who once said no at a school dance had become the man who chose me every single day, and I knew, deep in my heart, that our story was leading us exactly where we were meant to go. 10 years passed faster than I ever thought they would. Somewhere between homework and heartbreaks, between growing up and growing wiser, we became constants in each other's lives. What once felt uncertain slowly turned into something unshakable. We weren't just two kids with a complicated beginning anymore. We were best friends, partners, and each other's home. As adults, life tested us in new ways. Jobs, responsibilities, distance, and hard decisions all tried to pull us apart. There were moments when things weren't perfect, moments when we had to choose communication over silence and patience over pride. But every challenge only proved how strong what we had truly was. We never forgot where we started, and maybe that's what kept us grounded. He knew me in ways no one else ever had. He remembered the shy 13-year-old girl who was too scared to speak, and I knew the boy who once stood nervously on my porch, trying to make things right. We grew into ourselves together, learning what love really meant. Not just excitement or butterflies, but commitment, forgiveness, and choosing each other even on the hard days. Then came the moment I never could have imagined all those years ago. In March, surrounded by the people we love most, I married him. Standing there, looking into his eyes, I thought about that school dance, that painful rejection, that unexpected doorbell ring. I realized that if anything had happened differently, we might not have ended up here. Every misstep, every delay, every moment of heartbreak led us exactly where we were meant to be. When I said, I do, it wasn't just to the man standing in front of me, it was to our entire story. The awkward beginnings, the bad timing, the years of growing up. All of it mattered. Now, I get to spend the rest of my life with the boy who once said no, the boy who came back, and the man who never left. And every single day, I'm grateful that 13-year-old me found the courage to ask, because that one brave moment changed my entire life.